Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The pulsing bass reverberated through the floorboards as Jake and Ben stood on the porch of the sprawling fraternity house. Strobe lights flickered through the windows, casting eerie shadows across their painted faces. Jake tugged at the hem of his slinky red dress, his freshly manicured nails glinting in the dim porch light. "I can't believe we're actually doing this," he whispered, his voice pitched higher than usual. The long blonde wig framing his face itched something fierce, but he resisted the urge to scratch. Ben, decked out in a curve-hugging blue number, rolled his eyes dramatically. "It's gonna be fine, sis," he drawled, already embracing his role as Jake's protective older sister. "Just remember, you're Riker tonight, the life of the party." Jake, or rather Riker, took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders and affecting a coy smile. "Right, Riker. Got it." The door swung open, revealing a red-faced frat brother clutching a red Solo cup. His bleary eyes widened as he took in the sight of the two women on the porch.
"Well, hello, ladies,"
he slurred, nearly sloshing his drink.
"Welcome to the party of the year."
Riker batted his false eyelashes, pitching his voice into a sultry purr.
"Why, thank you, handsome. We've been so looking forward to it."
Ben shot the guy a withering glare, looping his arm protectively through Riker's.
"Easy there, Tiger. My little sister's off limits."
The frat boy held up his hands in mock surrender, backing away to let them enter. As they crossed the threshold, the pounding music enveloped them, the air thick with the mingled scents of beer, sweat, and cheap cologne. Riker's heart raced as dozens of eyes turned their way. He'd been nervous about pulling this off, but now that they were here, a strange sense of exhilaration coursed through him. For one wild night, he could be anyone he wanted. "Jello shots!" someone shouted, and a tray materialized in front of them, wobbling precariously in the hands of a glassy-eyed sorority girl.
"Don't mind if I do,"
Riker purred, plucking two brightly colored shots from the tray. He handed one to Ben with a wink. "Bottoms up, sis." They clinked the tiny plastic cups together before tipping them back. The sickly sweet alcohol burned Riker's throat, but he forced himself to giggle girlishly. "Ooh, that's strong." "Maybe we should pace ourselves," Ben muttered, but Riker was already reaching for another shot. "Lighten up! We're here to have fun, remember?" Riker tossed back the second shot with a flourish. The alcohol hit his system quickly, warming him from the inside out and loosening his inhibitions. A new song came on, the crowd around them cheering as they recognized the opening notes. Riker grabbed Ben's hand, tugging him toward the makeshift dance floor in the living room. "Come on, I love this song!" Ben stumbled after him, nearly losing a heel in the process. "Riker, wait!" But Riker was already moving to the beat, his hips swaying in a way that would have been impossible in his everyday attire. He raised his arms above his head, losing himself in the music. All around them, sweaty bodies pressed close, the air electric with youthful energy. A tall, broad-shouldered guy sidled up to Riker, flashing a megawatt smile.
"Hey there, gorgeous. Can I get you a drink?"
Riker batted his lashes coyly.
"Why, aren't you sweet? I'd love one."
The guy's grin widened. "I'm Chad, and you are?"
"Riker,"
he replied, affecting a girlish giggle. "It's so nice to meet you, Chad." Chad's hand came to rest on the small of Riker's back as he guided him towards the kitchen. Ben watched them go, a mix of amusement and concern on his face. In the kitchen, Chad mixed up some concoction in a red cup, his biceps flexing as he poured. Riker leaned against the counter, trying his best to look alluring. "So, Riker," Chad said, handing over the drink, I haven't seen you around campus before. What's your major? Riker took a sip, nearly choking on the strong taste. He recovered quickly, giggling to cover his mistake. Oh, I'm studying fashion design, he lied, saying the first thing that came to mind. How about you? Business, Chad replied, puffing out his chest a little. Going to take over my dad's company someday. Riker nodded, feigning interest as Chad launched into a monologue about market trends and profit margins. He let his eyes wander, taking in the chaos of the party around them. In the living room, a group had started a rowdy game of beer pong. Through the sliding glass doors, he could see people splashing around in the pool, their shrieks of laughter carrying over the music. And that's why emerging markets are so crucial, Chad finished, looking expectantly at Riker. Wow, that's so fascinating, Riker gushed, having heard exactly none of it. You must be really smart. Chad preened under the praise. Well, I don't like to brag, but... Riker! Ben's voice cut through the noise as he pushed his way into the kitchen.
There you are. We need to powder our noses.
Riker blinked in confusion for a moment before catching on.
Oh, right, of course. Sorry, Chad. Girl stuff. You understand?
Chad looked disappointed but nodded.
Sure. Save a dance for me later? Absolutely, Riker promised with a wink, allowing Ben to drag him away. Once they were out of earshot, Ben hissed, What are you doing? We're supposed to be laying low, not flirting with every guy here. Riker rolled his eyes. Relax, we're fine. No one suspects a thing. Now come on, let's go join that beer pong game. I bet we could totally crush those frat boys. Before Ben could protest, Riker was already sashaying towards the beer pong table, hips swaying. With a resigned sigh, Ben followed. Room for two more? Riker asked sweetly, twirling a strand of his wig around his finger. The guys at the table exchanged glances, clearly appreciative of the new arrivals. Hell yeah, one of them said, moving aside to make room. You ladies ever played before? Riker shared a conspiratorial look with Ben. In their normal lives, they were beer pong champions. Oh, we might have played once or twice, he said coyly. As it turned out, Riker and Ben were just as skilled in heels and dresses as they were in their usual attire. They dominated the game, sinking cup after cup with deadly accuracy. The crowd around the table grew, cheering them on with each successful shot. Damn, girl, one of their opponents exclaimed as Riker sank the winning shot. Where'd you learn to play like that? Riker shrugged, playing it cool. Oh, practice makes perfect. As they stepped away from the table, flush with victory, a new song came on. The opening notes of Girls Just Want to Have Fun filled the air, and a cheer went up from the crowd. Oh my God, this is my jam! Riker squealed, grabbing Ben's hand. We have to dance! Before Ben could protest, they were swept onto the dance floor. Riker threw himself into the music with abandon, twirling and shimmying like he'd been born to it. Ben, despite his initial reluctance, found himself getting into the spirit as well. As they danced, Riker caught sight of Chad watching him from across the room. He blew a flirty kiss, enjoying the way Chad's face lit up. This was turning out to be even more fun than he'd anticipated. The song changed, transitioning into a slower, more sensual beat. Couples around them started pairing off, swaying together closely. Riker felt a tap on his shoulder and turned to find Chad standing there, hand extended in invitation. May I have this dance? He asked, flashing that megawatt smile again. Riker hesitated for a split second, glancing at Ben. His friend nodded almost imperceptibly, a silent, "Go ahead, but be careful." I'd love to,
Riker replied, taking Chad's hand. Chad pulled him close,
one hand on Riker's waist as they began to move to the music. Riker's heart raced, a mix of excitement and nerves coursing through him. He'd never been this close to another guy before, at least not in this context.
"You're a great dancer,"
Chad murmured, his breath hot against Riker's ear. Riker suppressed a shiver.
"Thanks. You're not so bad yourself."
As they swayed together, Riker couldn't help but notice how nice Chad smelled, a mix of cologne and something uniquely masculine. It was intoxicating. The song seemed to stretch on forever, the world narrowing down to just the two of them. Riker found himself relaxing into Chad's embrace, his head coming to rest on the taller man's shoulder. As the final notes faded away, Chad pulled back slightly. "Want to get some air?" Riker nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He allowed Chad to lead him through the crowded house and out onto the back patio. The cool night air was a relief after the stuffy interior. They found a quiet corner, leaning against the railing. The muffled sounds of the party drifted out to them, but it felt like they were in their own little world.
"So,"
Chad said, turning to face Riker.
"Tell me more about yourself. What made you decide to come to this party tonight?"
Riker's mind raced, trying to come up with a plausible story.
"Oh, just wanted to let loose, have some fun. College is all about new experiences, right?"
Chad nodded, a strange look crossing his face.
"Yeah, it sure is."
He paused, seeming to struggle with something.
Can I tell you a secret?"
Riker's heart skipped a beat.
"Of course,"
he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Chad leaned in closer, lowering his voice.
"I've never told anyone this before, but I think I might be in love with you."
Riker's eyes widened in shock.
What? But we just met."
Chad shook his head vehemently. No, you don't understand. I've seen you around campus before. I've always been too scared to talk to you, but when I saw you walk in tonight, I knew I had to take my chance. Riker's mind reeled. This was not at all how he'd expected the night to go. Chad, I
don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything,"
Chad insisted, taking Riker's hands in his own.
"Just give me a chance. Let me take you out on a real date. I promise I'll treat you like a queen."
Riker's stomach churned with a mixture of guilt and panic. This had gone way too far. He needed to find a way out of this situation, and fast.
"Chad, I'm flattered, really,"
he began, trying to extricate his hands gently. "But I think you might have me confused with someone else. I'm not. There you are!" Riker had never been so relieved to hear Ben's voice. His friend appeared at his side, looking slightly frazzled.
"Sorry to interrupt,"
Ben said, not sounding sorry at all. "But we really need to get going. Family emergency." Chad's face fell.
"But I'm so sorry,"
Riker said, seizing the opportunity to escape. "It was lovely meeting you, Chad. Thanks for the dance." Before Chad could protest further, Riker and Ben were hurrying back into the house, weaving through the crowd towards the front door.
"What happened?"
Ben hissed as they pushed their way outside.
"I'll explain later,"
Riker replied, his heart still racing.
"Let's just get out of here."
They were halfway down the front walk when a shrill voice stopped them in their tracks. "Brittany? Brittany, is that you?" Ben froze, turning slowly to face a red-faced girl stumbling down the porch steps. "Oh my God, it is you!" The girl shrieked, her words slurring together. "You bitch! How dare you show your face here after what you did to my brother?" Ben held up his hands, placatingly.
"I'm sorry. I think you have me confused with someone else."
But the girl was having none of it. She lunged forward, nearly falling in her drunken state. "Don't you dare lie to me!
I'd recognize that tacky dress anywhere.
A crowd was starting to gather on the porch, drawn by the commotion. Riker grabbed Ben's arm, tugging him towards the street. We need to go. Now. They took off running, their heels click-clacking on the pavement. Behind them, they could hear shouting and the sound of pursuit.
This way!
Riker gasped, pulling Ben down a side street. They ran as fast as they could in their impractical shoes, ducking through alleys and cutting across lawns. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they collapsed onto a park bench, chests heaving. I think we lost them, Ben panted, kicking off his heels with a groan of relief. Riker nodded, too out of breath to speak. As the adrenaline began to fade, the absurdity of their situation hit him. Here they were, two guys dressed as women, sitting in a park in the middle of the night, having just fled a frat party. A giggle bubbled up in his chest, quickly turning into full-blown laughter. Ben stared at him for a moment before joining in, their combined mirth echoing through the quiet night.
Oh my God!
Riker gasped between fits of laughter.
Did that really just happen?
Ben wiped tears from his eyes, careful not to smudge his mascara. I can't believe we pulled that off. As their laughter subsided, they sat in companionable silence for a moment, catching their breath. So, Ben said finally, want to tell me what happened with that Chad guy? Riker groaned, burying his face in his hands. You're not going to believe this. He recounted the whole bizarre incident, the dance, the confession of love, the offer of a date. By the time he finished, Ben was shaking with suppressed laughter.
It's not funny!
Riker protested, but he couldn't help chuckling himself. What am I supposed to do if I run into him on campus? Ben shrugged, still grinning. Guess you'll just have to let him down gently. Tell him your family moved you to a convent or something. Riker swatted at him playfully. You're no help at all. They lapsed into silence again, the events of the night settling over them. Despite the close calls and the chaos, Riker couldn't deny that it had been exhilarating. For one night, he'd been someone completely different, confident, flirtatious, the center of attention. Hey, Ben, he said softly. Yeah? Thanks for doing this with me. I know it was crazy, but I had fun. Ben smiled, bumping his shoulder against Riker's. Me too, buddy. Me too. As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, they stood up, gathering their discarded shoes. Come on, Ben said. Let's go home and get out of these clothes. I don't know about you, but I could use about a gallon of makeup remover. Riker laughed, linking his arm through Ben's as they started the long walk back to their dorm. Agreed, but hey, at least we'll have one hell of a story to tell. And as they walked, still in their rumpled dresses and smudged makeup, Riker knew that this night would go down in their personal history as one of the most memorable of their college years. It wasn't just about the disguises or the party. It was about pushing boundaries, taking risks, and discovering new sides of themselves. For one wild night, they'd been Riker and Ben, the life of the party. And while they were ready to return to their normal lives, a small part of Riker couldn't help but wonder when they might get the chance to don those heels again. The campus was just beginning to stir as they made their way back to the dorms. Early risers gave them curious looks as they passed, but Riker and Ben were past the point of caring. They'd survived the night, and that was all that mattered. As they approached their building, Riker suddenly stopped short. Oh, no, he groaned. What? Ben asked, alarmed. What's wrong? Riker gestured helplessly at his feet.
I lost one of my shoes during the chase. How am I supposed to explain that to the costume shop?
Ben burst out laughing.
Of all the things to worry about after tonight, that's what you're focused on?
Riker couldn't help but join in the laughter.
It was such a trivial concern compared to everything else they'd been through. I guess you're right. Maybe I'll tell them Cinderella needed it back. They managed to sneak into their dorm without encountering too many people, though the few early birds they did pass gave them some very strange looks. Once safely in their room, they collapsed onto their beds, exhaustion finally catching up with them. I call first shower, Riker mumbled, his face half buried in his pillow.
No way,
Ben protested.
This makeup is killing me. I'm going first.
They bickered half-heartedly for a few minutes before deciding to just flip a coin. Ben won, disappearing into their tiny shared bathroom with an armful of makeup wipes and a triumphant grin. Left alone, Riker found himself replaying moments from the night in his head. The way it had felt to dance with Chad, the rush of winning at beer pong, the exhilaration of their daring escape. It had been terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. When Ben emerged from the bathroom, fresh-faced and back in his normal clothes, Riker was still lost in thought. Earth to Riker, Ben said, waving a hand in front of his friend's face. Shower's all yours. Riker blinked, coming back to the present.
Right, thanks.
As he stood under the hot water, watching the last traces of makeup swirl down the drain, Riker felt a strange sense of loss. It wasn't that he wanted to be a woman exactly, but for one night, he'd gotten to experience life from a completely different perspective. He'd been the object of attention, desired and pursued in a way he'd never experienced before. By the time he finished his shower and changed back into his regular clothes, Ben was sprawled on his bed, scrolling through his phone. Dude, Ben said, holding up the screen. You're not going to believe this. Riker peered at the phone. It was open to their university's anonymous confession page, and right at the top was a post that made his heart skip a beat. To the gorgeous blonde in the red dress at last night's Sigma Chi party, I think I'm in love with you. If you're reading this, please meet me at the campus coffee shop tomorrow at 3. I'll be wearing a blue shirt and holding a red rose. Your secret admirer. Riker groaned, flopping back onto his own bed. You've got to be kidding me. Ben was shaking with silent laughter. What are you going to do? Nothing, Riker exclaimed. What am I supposed to do? Show up and drag and break the poor guy's heart? Ben shrugged, still grinning. I don't know, man. Sounds like you made quite an impression. Riker threw a pillow at him. Shut up. This isn't funny. But even as he said it, he couldn't help the small smile tugging at his lips. It was a little funny, in a bizarre sort of way. As they settled in to catch a few hours of sleep before their afternoon classes, Riker found himself wondering what might have happened if things had gone differently. If he'd been born a woman, or if Chad had known the truth and still been interested. It was a confusing tangle of thoughts and feelings that he wasn't quite ready to unravel.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!